The Cincinnati Bengals are back in the Super Bowl. And for once, they aren't playing the San Francisco 49ers. However, we need to revisit their last Super Bowl appearance, which happened during the 1988 season. It's Super Bowl XXIII, and we're taking a look at it today on the Touchback.
Here comes the field goal unit and Jim Breach, the man with the smallest foot in professional football, a size 5.
Now, of course, Super Bowl XXIII is a rematch of the 1982 Super Bowl between the 49ers and the Bengals. That matchup ended in favor of San Francisco 26-21, and since then the franchises have been on very divergent paths. San Francisco won the championship again in 1985 and have been one of the best teams throughout the 1980s. The Bengals, on the other hand, have not. They failed to make the playoffs in every season since that last Super Bowl appearance, and in 1987 they finished a paltry 4-11. However, times have changed at Riverfront Stadium. An MVP campaign from quarterback Boomer Esiason has seen the Bengals finish 12-4 and lock up the number 1 seed in the AFC. Now, if we're being fair, the American Football Conference is horrific at this juncture in time. Only 4 teams in the conference managed to win 10 or more games that season. Now, if we flip over to the NFC, in the NFC West alone, 3 teams finished 10-6 or better. One of those teams is, of course, the San Francisco 49ers, who had a bit of a helter-skelter season by their lofty standards. Joe Montana has been injured during portions of 1988, and the team has also wanted to work in Steve Young, who they gave a little game action to in 1987, and they're trying to find ways to work him into the team. Montana's injuries would actually see him sidelined for a few games. Young would get a couple of starts. It didn't go well. The Niners at one point were 6-5 in 1988, but Montana came back after losing the game in week 12. He came back and the Niners just went gangbusters on a run. They finished with the 2nd seed in the NFC and just were dominating teams in the playoffs, just brushing aside the Vikings and Bears to arrive at Super Bowl XXIII. There was a bit of a distraction for the 49ers at this point in time surrounding their head coach, the legendary Bill Walsh. Rumors were circling that this was his final go-round with the team, and the announcers actually bring this up several times during the broadcast. And while Walsh hadn't made a decision on his future just yet, everyone pretty much assumed this was going to be his last game with the 49ers, and indeed it was. The Bengals had some uncertainty and issues of their own. Starting fullback, Stanley Wilson got popped for doing cocaine the night before. As the legend goes here, Wilson showed up about 20 minutes late to a team meeting around 8 p.m. the night before the Super Bowl. His position coach went looking for him and found Wilson indulging in the nose clams in a hotel bathroom, at which point the Bengals kicked him off the team, sent him home. This was not Wilson's first go-round when it came to cocaine. He had actually been suspended twice before, and the 3rd violation of the NFL's substance abuse policy meant he would be banned for life after this game. There are even some rumors. Now, I looked to see if there's any evidence on this. You'll find articles referencing this story, but the video appears to have been taken down by the NFL, or at least edited. However, it was reported or alleged that Bengals wide receiver, now famed color commentator Chris Collinsworth, was on the sidelines telling teammates, "We need to win this one for Stanley," and a lot of them didn't quite respond. The way you would, the way he had hoped. Apparently, win one for Stanley wasn't quite win one for the Gipper. And with that out of the way, it is time for kickoff. We are at Miami's Joe Robbie, don't call it Pro Player Stadium just yet. Billy Joel hits us with the national anthem, and away we go with Super Bowl XXIII between the Bengals and the 49ers. Cincinnati wins the coin toss and defers. San Francisco receives the opening kickoff, and it just sort of goes nowhere. Dick Enberg then gives us his best Tony Romo impression as Joe Montana and company take the field.
He loves to throw on first down. A reverse to Rice. And he's hit at the 32-yard line, a gain of about 5 or 6.
We get a few plays in, and the Niners suffer an injury to one of their offensive linemen, Steve Wallace. This is later reported as a fractured ankle. The injury dishevels the Niners a bit. They run a few more plays, and then on a 3rd and 10 on the opening drive, Montana just sort of botches the snap, and we get a 4th down with the Niners drive stalling out here. After this play, we get a bit of a skirmish between the Niners offensive line and the Bengals defense. The Niners punt the ball away. The Bengals receive on their opening drive. They run a few plays, this sort of basic stuff. And then we also get another skirmish again, this time the Bengals offensive line getting into it with the Niners defense. Anyway, the Bengals run a few more plays. They get a 3rd down, a 3rd and 5. They don't convert here either, and the Niners get the ball once more. The Niners have the ball, and then the Bengals suffer a major injury, this time to defensive standout Tim Crumroy, who is the leader on the defensive line. His story here gets a bit weird. They stretcher him off the field on this flimsy mattress with wheels type deal. He sort of loiters around. They don't get him off immediately, even though it's being reported by the announcers that he has just basically shattered his leg. He's seen, they're still slowly getting him off the sideline a few minutes later. And then actually later in the game, he's just in the sort of the tunnel watching the game. Apparently doctors wanted him to go to the hospital. He declined to go to the hospital. They couldn't figure it out. The announcers didn't know what was going on. And eventually he had to leave. They forcibly took him to a hospital to set his leg. But this was seen as a pretty big blow for the Bengals early on to lose such an important player on their defensive line as Tim Crumroy. So the Niners still have the ball. They're slowly working it downfield. Jerry Rice makes his first appearance of the day with this catch, and we see the on-screen graphic, and he's looking quite dapper. I know many people around my age will remember balding cornrows Jerry Rice as sort of their legacy, but man, this Jerry Rice looks freaking cool. The Niners continue on with this drive. It's aided quite a bit by a 15-yard roughing the passer penalty on Joe Montana, as the Niners offense just isn't clicking early on. They get down into Bengals territory, and eventually kicker Mike Coffer would convert on a 41-yard attempt, and it is 3-0 in favor of San Francisco. After the field goal is made, Dick Enberg then gives us some stat foreshadowing and then proceeds to completely ruin the on-screen stat he just told us.
The team that scored first has lost the last 4 Super Bowls, but overall in the previous 22, the team that has scored first has won 15 and lost 7.
Bengals get the ball back here. They start on their next possession, and we see Ickey Woods making himself known, the man best recalled for the Ickey Shuffle, and he runs up the gut, and the Niners decide to tackle him and the umpire and just whoever else they can get their hands on during this run. There's something I want to mention about Ickey Woods here too, because his pads are so blocky. Like, I know this was kind of the style in the 80s, but it just looks ridiculous. It's almost like he's wearing the Flight of the Conchords Daft Punk uniforms or costumes, and someone just slapped on a Bengals jersey over it. Like, why is dude so boxy with his pads on? It's all squared. It's utterly ridiculous just how square Ickey Woods is with his pads on.
I ain't hearing that, see. You asking or you telling? 'Cause nobody tells Boxy Brown.
Anyway, the Bengals continue on with this drive. The umpire is okay. And then Ronnie Lott just basically single-handedly says the Bengals aren't doing anything right now. He just launches into the tackle here. And then a few plays later, he almost has an interception. Ronnie Lott in this game is a true highlight. Like, if you have never watched Ronnie Lott play, like, do yourself a favor and go check out some Ronnie Lott highlights, because this is just what he's all about, just knocking fools over and just making plays. Ronnie Lott is an absolute legend. The Bengals drive sort of peters out. They punt the ball back to the 49ers. We're getting really close to the end of the first quarter. The 49ers opt to run a few plays, and we get this pretty nifty one-handed catch from Jerry Rice, with Merlin Olsen providing some excellent commentary here for us on just how Rice caught this ball.
He didn't catch that with his ankle.
And that is the end of the first quarter. Moving on to the second quarter. The second play of the second quarter is Jerry Rice once again doing his thing with this pass reception from Joe Montana. Anyway, the Niners are having some success on this drive. They're moving it down. They get into the red zone. They get inside the 10-yard line, and they get stopped on third down. It's a 4th and 2. Originally, Bill Walsh sends the offense out there to go for it in a move I'm sure Brandon Staley would probably love in modern times. The Niners, Walsh calls a timeout. They reconsider it, and they send on the kicking team. The Niners looking to go up 6-0, but the snap is horrific. The kick is somehow even worse. This is maybe the worst looking field goal attempt in NFL history. It just flat and goes nowhere. I don't quite understand. Even with the bad snap, the laces were out. Like, at least get the ball some air. Anyway, the Niners turn the ball over. The Bengals get it back, having dodged a huge bullet, still 3-0, and it is time for Boomer Esiason to go back to work. Unfortunately, the Bengals offense is not doing a whole heck of a lot. Esiason off target, well, once again. At this point, it's pretty obvious Boomer Esiason is playing hurt. He's been playing hurt for most of the end of the season, definitely in the playoffs and towards the end of the season. Although the Bengals aren't really talking much about this injury, you can just watch him in this game. He's overthrowing guys. His passes have no velocity. Merlin Olsen mentioned several times how, like, his passes are just lame ducks out there. Esiason is not himself in this game, and it's really hindering the Bengals offense because he cannot complete a pass to save his life. Anyway, it's 3-and-out. Bengals opt to punt it deep in their own territory. It looks like it may be a good punt. John Taylor just totally misjudges this thing and then does what you probably shouldn't do and make amends for his mistake. It actually works out pretty well for him, all things considered. Niners on offense looking to make amends for the missed kick in the last drive. We get this weird play where Joe Montana decides to throw the ball backwards to his fullback, who doesn't appear to realize that he's even an eligible receiver on the play, and B, doesn't show much urgency in trying to recover what is a fumble, but does get it back. Plays later, Niners running it with Roger Craig. It looks like it's going to be a heck of a play, and then all of a sudden a Bengals defender comes out and clothesline tackles him. I haven't seen form like that since the back of the Madden 93 box for Sega Genesis. I mean, that is a textbook clothesline tackle that caused the fumble. Bengals recover. The Bengals take advantage of the turnover by getting a nice run from James Brooks. It looks like they finally have some momentum, and then Boomer Esiason proceeds to throw the ball into quadruple coverage, throw the ball to no one, and then take a sack And that ends that. The Bengals punt it away, Niners get the ball back. Neither team is moving the ball particularly effectively at this point. The Niners would punt it again. The Bengals get the ball back. We hit what Ember calls the 2-minute timeout.
There's the 2-minute timeout.
So the Bengals would get the ball back here. They move a little bit down the field. They got good field position. They're moving it down the field. Esiason completes a good pass. He then proceeds to almost throw an interception. And at this point, Bengals head coach Sam Weiss just basically white flags it, says we're going to take the 3 points. So yeah, the Bengals send on their kicker, Jim Breach, and we get a little weird closeted foot fetish talk between Enberg and Olsen here.
The man with the smallest foot in professional football, a size 5 right shoe. His other is a 7. He just wants to pack it in there.
Yeah, I don't really know what that's about. Anyway, Breach hits the field goal. We have a tie game, 3-3. Niners get the ball back with about a minute left, but Montana gets sacked, and that, my friends, is halftime of Super Bowl XXIII. Your Super Bowl XXIII halftime show is an Elvis impersonator, and that is not even a joke. Also notable, Super Bowl XXIII was the first Super Bowl to have the beloved Bud Bowl 1, and a big shout out to Budweiser for fending off Bud Light in that contest. The teams retake the field. The Bengals are receiving the second half kickoff, and we are underway once again. The Bengals offense is slowly moving down the field, and Ronnie Lott just lights up another Bengals player with a crushing hit. Unfortunately, this play never technically happened because a 49ers defender was offside. On the very next play, Chris Collinsworth, who's doing it for Stanley, catches his second pass of the game here. And now I want to talk a little bit about the Bengals' quote-unquote no-huddle offense, which is the slowest, most meandering, and is borderline illegal. So when we think of no-huddle offenses in modern times, we're thinking of quick, fast-paced, you don't want the other team to substitute. Well, the Bengals don't want the other team to substitute, but they are also like not moving in a hurry. Their whole thing is like they're just waiting for the other team to send a player off the field, and if they do, they're going to run a play as soon as possible. This was a source of consternation between many of the other coaches the Bengals played throughout the year, including Marv Levy in the AFC Championship game. But yeah, it's not really no huddle. It's just like the Bengals team will loiter on the field and see if the defense substitutes, and if they try to do that, they'll look to run a play as quickly as possible, and if not, they'll just sort of wait out and run the play clock down. However, the slow huddle / no huddle offense works on this drive. The Bengals successfully move it downfield slowly but surely. They would stall out as they got into Niners territory, and they needed to call on the small-footed Jim Breach to kick another field goal. He would duly oblige. It is now 6-3 in favor of the Bengals. The Niners get their next possession underway with a Jerry Rice dropped pass. Joe Montana just decides he'll do it himself and shows off his nice wheels. Even at his age and with his back injury, Montana is still pretty nimble, although he really tries to avoid it whenever possible, and that is on full display in this game. This drive stalls out as Montana takes a sack, and the Bengals get the ball back. The Bengals wouldn't have possession for particularly long as Esiason continued his wayward passing, throwing one to a young rookie Bill Romanowski, noted scumbag as well. Romanowski gets the pick, and the Niners are in business. Niners get the ball back in great field position, but don't really do anything with it. We see another Jerry Rice drop, and they would eventually settle for a field goal here. Mike Coffer makes amends for his previous miss, and we are all tied up at 6. The Niners kicking off to the Bengals, and well, what do you know? We finally get an interesting play here as Stanford Jennings takes the kickoff to the house, 98 yards. I don't really know what the Niners are doing here on this kickoff return because Stanford Jennings just sort of, I mean, he's fast, don't get me wrong, but kind of untouched, just sort of no one on that side of the field. But the Bengals will take it because their offense hasn't done anything. And is this a momentum shift? The Bengals 13-6 up. We are still in the third quarter. And now it is the Niners' time to respond. They start things off with another Jerry Rice catch. He is racking up some great stats when he isn't dropping the ball. And we have come to the end of the third quarter. It's Bengals 13, 49ers 6. The Niners are moving the ball down the field. We see a nice play from Roger Craig out of the backfield. And then Montana almost throws an interception here. This play, man, you've got to feel like Inberg and Merlin Olsen were really critical here of the defender on this dropped interception. And they get even worse on the next play because all of a sudden Montana finds Jerry Rice and it is a touchdown, and we are tied up. This is probably the moment of the game. That swing of two plays just sort of turned the tables around. However, we still have plenty of time left in the fourth quarter, and with the Niners momentum on their side, and we get a kickoff out of bounds. Bengals get the football back once again, and what happens? We get what has to be the softest sack in NFL history. I don't know how this is a sack. They ruled Esiason down, that he was in the defender's grasp. The announcers don't realize it until after the fact. No one sort of realizes it. And anytime you hear an old-timer wanting to criticize how soft the NFL has gotten in modern times, like, just point to this play, because this play is the softest play, the most ridiculous play I think you will find in the pantheon of quarterback protection calls. Like, seriously, this is not a sack. That puts the Bengals behind the eight ball. They don't convert on third down. They punt the ball back to John Taylor, who decides to catch this and not call fair catch for reasons nobody would know as he gets lit up. So the Niners have the ball once again, and we start things off this drive with a great catch from Jerry Rice, who takes the ball into Bengals territory. The next three plays, the Niners don't do anything with it, meaning it is time for a 49-yard kick from Mike Coffer, who duly misses. This is my big beef with NFL in the 80s, and going back and watching this game in particular. Kicking is so bad. I would like to thank kickers of today for taking their job seriously, for practicing, for honing their craft, because holy crap, kicking in the 80s was terrible. It looked like they just found random guys off the street and let them be kickers. Jim Breach literally is not allowed to kick outside of 50 yards. They have another guy to do that on the Bengals. I don't comprehend this. I don't understand how kicking could be so bad. I don't understand why the kickers didn't seem to practice like at all. And it's just so atrocious. And as much crap as I think modern fans like to give kickers in the kicking game, it is so much better than it had been 30 years before. And even, I think, into the early 90s before kickers started taking things seriously. The missed field goal means the Bengals get the ball back with decent-ish field position, and we finally see Boomer Esiason hit a pass, or complete a pass in what feels like has been close to an eternity. The Bengals at this point are slowly moving the ball downfield. We're under 5 minutes to go. They're in no hurry. On the sidelines, I don't know what this guy's job is or why he's on the sidelines, but he decides to pull out the Al Bundy move for no apparent reason. Al Bundy guy aside, the Bengals are slowly moving the ball downfield. They're no rush. They're trying to take as much time off the clock as possible. We'll see how that works out for them in a few minutes. Anyway, The Bengals get in the Niners territory, and they just decide they're not gonna push things. We see some very conservative plays. They're playing for the field goal essentially, which they do get. Jim Breach comes on to convert this field goal that's 40 yards. He makes it, although not particularly impressively, I would add. The Bengals all of a sudden have a 16-13 lead with 3 minutes and 10 seconds left. So they kick off, 49ers get it, and now it is up to Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Roger Craig, and company to go and score a touchdown. We get a John Frank he's a tight end, a John Frank catch. We get another catch from Rice who goes out of bounds. And then they run Roger Craig just before the 2-minute warning. The clock stops, and the Niners already have a couple of first downs, and they're moving. Out of the 2-minute timeout, as Inberg would call it, or the 2-minute warning, as most of us like to refer to it, as they do another Craig run. Injured Bengal means the clock stops once again. Rice gets another catch. He goes out of bounds. We get another Craig catch for a first down and an incomplete pass. At this point, the Niners are just nickel and diming the Bengals defense. Watching this, I don't understand what the Bengals were doing here. It was the most prevent of all prevent defenses, but they just weren't putting guys in the middle of the field. Like, they had mistakenly assumed there was about 40 seconds left and not 3 minutes left, because they're just letting the Niners complete and have whatever they want short, and the Niners are taking it and they are just moving down the field. However, the Bengals do catch a break because a Roger Craig catch is nullified for an ineligible player downfield, but a Rice catch and run gets it all back. We then get another Roger Craig catch. The Niners call timeout, and at this point, Montana takes the field. It's just inevitable. Like, everybody knows what's going to happen. The Bengals defense has looked so hopeless and out of sorts on this drive, and Montana just puts the dagger through their hearts with this touchdown toss to John Taylor. And this is the most famous play from this game, obviously. It's a good play, a good pass, good catch, and it is 20-16 with 30 some odd seconds left. And this is the game. The Bengals get the ball back. They don't do anything with it. Like, Esiason doesn't complete a pass. The Niners are celebrating, and they know what's up. And that is Super Bowl 23. So what happens to these teams after this Super Bowl? Well, the Bengals would finish 589 and even make the playoffs again in 1990. However, the wheels, as you probably know, fell off then, and the franchise just spent the next 15 years in the wilderness, as they wouldn't sniff the playoffs again until 2005. As for the legendary San Francisco 49ers, the bane of my personal existence, they would win the Super Bowl the next year. Although Bill Walsh did retire after this game, he was replaced by defensive coordinator George Seifert, who took over, won the Super Bowl. They would win the Super Bowl again in 94, although Montana would retire between the two and Steve Young would take over, and my childhood in Northern California would be spent dealing with myopic Niners fans telling me about how they were the team of the 1980s. Ugh. As for the game, we're going to rank it on the touchbacks scale of 1 to 10. 10 being a instant classic, you gotta watch this game no matter what, and 1 being a total avoid, do not watch, and 5 right down the middle is check out the highlights. And on that scale, Super Bowl 23 is a 2, and it's a easy 2. This game is bad, and it's not that it's the player's fault or it's a nervy game. It's just obviously Esiason's hurt, and the Bengals don't really have a game plan for that. But the Niners were just not clicking on this day. Rice put up some great numbers, but he had some really bad drops as well. And, you know, Joe Montana just looked a little off. The running game wasn't there. Again, I don't know. It wasn't nerves. Like, this team had been there before. It wasn't a nervy performance. It just wasn't very good. And I don't think both teams really delivered on this day. And I mean, really, it's amazing that the game was 20-16 because the Niners were clearly the better team in all areas, but they let the Bengals hang around. The kick return touchdown by Stanford Jennings, obviously a big part of that. But yeah, the game's boring unless you enjoy incomplete passes and runs that don't particularly go anywhere. So this does it for our look at Super Bowl XXIII, a game you shouldn't go out of your way to watch or even really check out the highlights, because there isn't much in the way of highlights. If you look at the NFL's official highlight video of this Super Bowl, it's like 3 minutes long. Until next time, I'm Cheyenne Hollis for the Touchback. We'll be back with more classic game reviews in the future. And until then, hashtag take it out to the 25. Also, I don't know why I have jerseys of both these teams in my house, but I do.
I ain't hearing that, see. You asking or you telling? Cause nobody tells Boxy Brown.
Boxy, this isn't a big deal. I mean, I'm just asking a favor.